But last night, let's recap what happened in the National Basketball Association. It's the first weekend of playoff action, and perhaps one of the bigger upsets of the weekend, although most people thought the Warriors would win. They did. They go on the road and beat the Houston Rockets, a very dangerous team right now going into this first round of the NBA playoffs. Steph Curry had 31 points. He also knocked down 5 3-pointers. Jimmy Butler had 25 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 steals. It's the 100th career playoff coaching victory for Steve Kerr, who moves into a tie with Larry Brown for the 6th most playoff wins. And again, this game was in Houston, so already the Warriors go on the road and steal a game. It was all about the defensive performance and all about Jimmy Butler, who is the big addition to the Warriors in this one.
We could see just from watching them, look pretty physical. How really physical was this game, and what do you think you guys showed to stand up to it and dish out some physicality of your own?
They're an incredible team, definitely a physical one. But I would like to think that we don't back down from any challenge anyways. And we met brute force with brute force, maybe a little bit of finesse in there as well. But I think we handled their pressure incredibly well, knowing that coming out the next game is probably going to be 2 to 3 times even more physical.
Not our best, obviously. We only score 85. It's not a great offensive night, and the numbers show that. But I think 6 for 29 from 3, 11 for 20 from free throw line, and 17 turnovers that gave up 25 points. So not our best offensive night by any means, like I said. Hold somebody 95, you'd expect to win if you have a decent offensive night. And not only shots, but like I said, turnovers playing in the crowd. The misses in the crowd are the same as turnovers, basically. So had our chances. Got to a 4-point game with 2:34, I think, and gave up a 3 there, but guarded well enough to win.
The number 1 seed Cleveland Cavaliers set to go in a 7-game series with the Miami Heat, who snuck into the playoffs via the play-in tournament. Game 1 goes in favor of Cleveland. The final score, 121-100. Donovan Mitchell had 30 points in this game. Miami kept it close throughout. Cleveland pulls away late in the fourth quarter. Mitchell was 11 of 19 from the field. In fact, this was a 7-point game as late as the fourth quarter. So could we be in line for a competitive series? Head coach of the Cavs, Kenny Atkinson, says the Heat will throw everything out there to try and get a win.
One thing about the Heat, they make you play for 48. I know that's a cliche, but a lot of teams don't. You cannot relax. I think this series, whatever happens, we're going to get so much better playing these guys. Even tonight, I know the score was 20 or whatever, but it was about 6-7 point game there. We just hit some shots, but it's going to be a battle this series. And
you get to the playoffs, there's going to be dynamic offensive teams, and they have guys that can drive and break it down off the dribble. And they can also shoot pull-up threes, and then they're very good spot-up shooters as well. So that's the task, and it's up to us to figure out how to beat that.
The Boston Celtics, of course, a huge favorite over the Orlando Magic in Game 1 of their 7-game series, and the Celtics cover the spread. They win 103-86. The big surprise in this one was the performance of Derrick White. He had 30 points. That led the Celtics. He knocked down 7 3-pointers. The game was close after the second period, but they ended up pulling away, did Boston, which just goes to show you that regardless of who you think is going to be scoring for Boston, as Derrick White says, you just never know.
It just means we got many different ways we can win. A lot of different things we could throw at teams, and just a lot of faith and trust in every person that checks in the game. So, we got a lot of different weapons and a lot of different people that do a lot of different things. So, whatever the game calls for, I feel like we can make that adjustment.
I think we just had some stagnant possessions and led to their runouts, which led to some threes to open the lead up.
On that point, whether it's the stagnant offense and playing quicker or anything along those lines, how do you guys get more production outside of you and Franz in the scoring column?
I'm not sure. I really got to go back and watch the game, see what went wrong. But it's game 1, there's nerves, lit crowd, really loud. So, you know, not a total surprise that, you know, we struggled a little bit on offense, honestly.
Meanwhile, the Oklahoma City Thunder won by 51 points, which is the largest margin in playoff history for a game one. The Thunder beat the Grizzlies 131 to 80. You talk about a blowout. Let me put an exclamation after that one. Naturally, Memphis Grizzlies had to play in those play-in games. Maybe that had something to do with the outcome here, but needless to say, the MVP of the NBA, which will be named in a couple of weeks here, it'll be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He talked about picking up a very easy win in game one.
Yeah, it all starts with getting stops. We get stops and we're able to play fast, play to our strengths, play in open space. That's the key to it all. I mean, if you look at any of those runs, we stack multiple possessions of great defensive possessions. Then it allows us to be who we are offensively. It's no secret. That's what it takes to have those stints in the game, and we know that. And that's our intention when we go out there. Not just to have like one good possession, two bad, one good. It's like stack them up.
I mean, it's the playoffs. I just felt like, after that, the energy, kind of wasn't there. We was kind of, trying to talk to ourselves into, getting back into the game. Obviously, at halftime, you have 24 minutes left, which is a lot of basketball. Just trying to spark a run, but they came out and, pretty much did what they did us in the second quarter, in the third, early on. And Coach burned them, early timeout.
In case you missed Saturday's action, a lot of blowouts. The biggest surprise were the Minnesota Timberwolves going to Los Angeles and winning game one of their 7-game series. Luka had 37 points, but Minnesota hit 21 of 42 from three-point range. This is what Minnesota's been doing all season long. We'll see if they can do it again. The Knicks go on a 21-0 run in the fourth quarter. They beat the Pistons 123-112 in game one. The Nuggets ended up going to overtime with the Los Angeles Clippers on Saturday. Denver was down. They come back to win by a bucket, 112-110. Also, Pascal Siakam helped the Pacers to their game one win against the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis had 36 points in defeat. In golf, a week after the Masters, they played the RBC Heritage, and it went to a playoff, and Justin Thomas ends up winning. He was 20-1 entering the tournament, so congrats to him being a very big underdog. Also, a scary collision in Major League Baseball yesterday. Luis Arias ended up being transported to a hospital to be evaluated after running into Mauricio Dubon on the field. We'll see when Arias can get back on the field, but it looks like all will be okay there. It is Patriots Day in Major League Baseball, so that means the first game of the day already has gone off. The Boston Red Sox playing against the Chicago White Sox. Boston minus 290 before they threw out that first pitch a couple of minutes ago. Yesterday, the Cincinnati Reds put a 24 spot up against the Baltimore Orioles, most runs scored since 1999. The New York Mets complete a sweep of the St. Louis Cardinals. 7-4 was the final yesterday. Juan Soto had 3 RBIs, and Fernando Tatis Jr. hit a home run to beat the Astros. 3-2 the final. Welcome back to Newswire here on SportsGrid. Great to have Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report back with us here on this Monday. Pat, great to have you back on Newswire. All right, so the hot topic lately over the last couple of weeks, tax rates, as we, believe it or not, getting at a quarter number one here of the new year and then headed toward November and some voting again. Tax rates, for the most part, I would say, based on the content that we've covered here, a lot of proposals to increase tax rates. I think we saw one potential pullback, but for the most part, every state that has legal sports betting wants to get more money from taxes. Which state wants more right now?
Yeah, I would say it is a hot topic right now in terms of sports betting legislation. And North Carolina, the Senate came in last week on Monday. They introduced their budget proposal, a 2-year budget. They included doubling the sports betting tax from 18% to 36%. And they quickly last week went ahead and passed that budget complete with that provision. And so now it goes to the House and kind of we'll see what the House does. They, of course, can amend that budget to their heart's desire, and it may or may not include that tax rate hike. And then whatever that then comes out of the House, we'll have to see the House and Senate kind of iron out those differences and what happens. So does that include this tax rate? We'll just have to wait and see. But so far, a big fast start in North Carolina, which it's kind of interesting. It would obviously double the tax rate, so you'd get almost an extra $135 million. A lot of that money, it's kind of dispersed through a bunch of different uses, but some of it is to go to the UNC system, but not NC State and North Carolina. Now, what this provision does, it would eventually, after all those initial distributions goes out, would send 10% of the remaining amount to North Carolina and NC State, given that they play, I think it's 4 in-state games against those other 13 UNC system schools in basketball. So just kind of a unique little provision to make sure those schools are playing each other and kind of nice little ecosystem. But yeah, to your broader point of taxes, the talk of the session, I mean, we've had a ton of proposals. We had Governor Mike DeWine in Ohio want to double his tax rate from 20 to 40%, and that's just 2 years after he already doubled it from 10% to 20%. That was stripped out by lawmakers, and they said, no, this was too much, too quick. They had already said that the doubling of from 10 to 20% was premature, so that one's off the clock right now. In Maryland, Wes Moore, in his gubernatorial budget proposal, went 15 to 30%. Lawmakers kind of negotiated that down to a 5% jump, so just a 20%. We'll see if that gets any traction from there. A couple other states, Michigan, Indiana, Louisiana, a couple other ones have also proposed tax hikes. Those haven't gone anywhere. New Jersey has also done so with Governor Phil Berger, but that hasn't gone anywhere. To your point on one suggesting a decrease, that's New York, which is kind of, in a way, why we're getting so many proposal hikes, because they're at that astronomical 51%, and other states are like, wait, why did we go with 10% or 15% when you could get that high? They're talking about potentially adding more licenses for operators, and then for every operator coming in, reducing the tax rate. That hasn't seen a lot of movement yet either, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, taxes, huge talk of the town. So far, North Carolina is the only one to really make any progress, and we'll see if it goes any further this session.
Yeah, we will see about North Carolina. Meanwhile, the state of Arizona, like a lot of other states, have decided that these prediction market games and, previously some of the DFS operators need to have some of the same legalities, restrictions, taxes as the sports betting operators. And so no surprise here. Over the weekend, Pat, we learned that Arizona is sending out some cease and desist as well.
Yeah, so Arizona's been kind of active in this realm. I mean, I've come on here regularly the past couple of months talking about Michigan sending who knows how many cease and desists at this point, or Maryland or Louisiana. A lot of cease and desists going out to, the sweepstakes operators, offshore sports books, the like. Arizona has been, until this week or last week, relatively active. They've been sending out kind of public service announcements to say, hey, make sure you're using legal licensed sports books, or make sure you're gambling at the right casino or legal casinos, which of course are only land-based in Arizona. And so they, have different pages that consumers can go to see who's licensed, what's okay to use, the things like that. They even sent one out last month that was about misbranded or like fake online casino brands that are mimicking those land-based casinos and saying they're an online extension, which of course, unless you have legal online casinos, is not allowed, and they don't in Arizona. So this is the first time we've seen this cease and desist after all these PSAs come out. They sent 6, a couple to the sweepstakes providers, a couple to offshore sports books, including my bookie, I believe. They sent out one to ProfitX, a peer-to-peer exchange. So it's just kind of them being more active. Again, they've sent out lots of PSAs to say, hey, make sure you're doing what you're doing legally to the consumers. And now, as they're kind of ratcheting down that, they're saying, okay, let's get rid of those in our market if we can. And again, it's just following more and more of those states that have been sending out those cease and desists regularly to any number of different types of entries into this online gambling space now. I mean, to your point, we've got those sweepstakes operators. We've always had those offshore sports books. We've got the DFS 2.0 industry that we saw huge in this area about 2 years ago, and now has kind of gone to the side of all these other operators coming in. And now, of course, prediction markets, which I'm sure we'll be talking about plenty in the coming weeks as the CFTC gets ready on their roundtable on that industry.
Yep, would agree. It's the big story of the year. This would be the biggest story of the year, though, if this passes in New York. Pat, we discussed this with Sam on Friday. New York trying to maybe pass a legalization on max bets and maximum deposits over the course of a single day. I mean, this certainly would be groundbreaking. I know that the sports betting operators are not going to love seeing this, but in the end, is this going too far with protection, telling people the most you can bet on a game is $5,000, and also basically instituting the idea that you can't just keep reloading your account? I mean, the broad view of it is it seems like a good idea to curb people with problem gambling, but the flip side of that is that somebody says, "Hey, look, I can bet $10,000 a game if I want. Why can't I?"
Well, yeah. So yeah, this bill would institute, along with the $5,000 bet max in a day, 5 deposits a day, some strict advertising restrictions, and yeah, I think the big pushback there is, yeah, if you're gonna limit me, and I am gonna be betting that much or willing to bet that much anyway, I can just go offshore. Or in the case of a lot of New Yorkers, it wasn't that long ago that all they had to do was go across the bridge to New Jersey to bet.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of an argument now against this bill as well, as well, I'll just go to New Jersey or I'll go to Connecticut. So I think, we've seen a lot of bills like this across the country this year, kind of in the similar vein as the tax rate, as we're seeing these headwinds of, hey, the online gambling industry is creating these issues. There's some things we could do to maybe tighten it, but there's a lot of things to iron out, I think, in terms of the way the industry is pushing back on it, the way the people or the governments and lawmakers are pushing back on the industry, and how it all works out in the end, and what is best for everybody. Because I don't think this industry is going away. I think lawmakers recognize that, but they got to figure out the right way to kind of mitigate all these concerns that are coming from various parties across the country, to make it the safest, best industry it can be.
Well, Pat, we'll see, because again, we just had Responsible Gaming Month in March, and here we are in April with maybe some major legislation. And if it does happen in New York, who's to say that other states don't incorporate the same thing? I think this is going to be a big battle, though, Pat. I don't think that the operators are going to, want to bend down and basically say, "Hey, look, we'll just do whatever you want." Maybe some sort of compromises in store, but we'll read about that and a whole lot over at LegalSportsReport.com. Pat, thanks for coming on the show. We'll catch up with you later in the week.
Awesome. Thanks as always, Craig. Talk to you soon.